Hello, and welcome to Health and Fitness Redefined. I'm your host, Anthony Amen. Join me today as we take a dive into the world of health and fitness. We're learning to overcome adversity, pick fact versus fiction, and see health and fitness in a whole new light. Welcome, guys. I hope you're enjoying our little quick tip segments. We've done a couple at this point. If you want us to talk about anything, it's a quick 5-minute episode, right to the point. This is what I think you should do. Anthony, this is the burning question I have. Please reach out to me at healthfitnessredefinedpodcast@gmail.com. Again, healthfitnessredefinedpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you guys so I can talk about more topics that maybe I haven't thought of yet. And you're just like, hey, talk about this one. Dive into it. Bada bing, bada boom. Done. And hope I can help. Without further ado, let's welcome to today's show, Zack. Zack, it's a pleasure to have you on today. I know you're kind of famous, so this is going to be fun and exciting.
Oh, hardly, but pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm really excited to talk about supplementation and different foods that we eat. And I know it's like really in your wheelhouse. And I don't want to spoil why, but I kind of want you to take us back to how you got started and why I made the comment about you being famous. So take it away, man.
For sure. Yeah. So, well, my health journey really started when I was in 6th grade. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And basically, for members of the audience that aren't familiar, essentially, you have to start playing the role of your pancreas. So all of its calculations you have to do yourself. And the goal is basically to keep blood sugar in check. But that's really hard. The range is pretty tight. That's optimal. So roughly 5 Skittles worth of carbs would push you out of that range, either too high or too low. And so it was really a pretty tricky situation as a 6th grader to start having to worry about all the foods I was eating and their carb content, the macronutrient mix that composed those meals. And but after some urging from my parents, really dove all the way in, started running experiments on myself just to figure out basically what had what impact. And I think that sort of put my mindset in this place that as we mature, all of us sort of get into, which is worrying about essentially all the different inputs to health and fitness and, what we do and how that makes us feel. So I was thrust there against my will as a young kid. And so I really have been, excited to learn more and get healthier basically over these years.
Yeah, that's exciting, man. I mean, like you took something that, you were born with type 1 diabetes, usually is something you're born with. You're taking control of your pancreas, and it really teaches you that like kind of fine line of what you're putting into body. So and for those that don't suffer from type 1 diabetes, it would kind of be just like really figuring out your caloric intake down to a T. Like you have to, okay, this amount of ounces for this amount of eggs is going to hit me at that caloric goal. And that's pretty much where it's going to take you that way.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it's really homeostasis, and that's kind of a challenge that is not usually so explicit. Of course, we worry about how we feel every day and how our sleep affects our energy and all sorts of stuff like that. But really, this is a pretty delicate balancing act of maintaining blood sugar using insulin and using carbs. And then I guess the sort of second piece of my sort of health awakening was taking up running. Initially, I did that for diabetes to maintain insulin sensitivity, and cardio is excellent for that. But it really grew into passion all on its own. And there's some key takeaways from that. Biggest one is that essentially as we optimize our health, we want to really lean into eustress. So stress that feels like motivation and flow, really like meaningful, positive engagement with the activities we're doing. And I found that at that place in my training, when I was feeling like this is hard and challenging, but I've got this under control, that was when I was seeing the biggest gains. So that was sort of a concept that came a few years later, and sort of in this domain of adaptation and homeostasis and that balance.
What made you start? Like, how did you start your running routine? Was it something you regimented, or did you kind of just say, "Hey, let me go and go now"?
Yeah, I joined the cross country program in my high school, and we had a really good set of coaches and a great program, so it was easy enough to get started with guidance there.
Is running something you're still doing now?
Yeah, lots of it. Yeah.
What do you like? You like the cross country long style, or you're more like the shorter 20 millimeter sprints?
I'm more suited for the longer stuff. I don't have the best foot speed, but I do have endurance.
Nice. That stuff is always blew my mind. I will never run a marathon. It's just not in my blood.
Totally.
But good for those that do. So, how did you take this to the next step? What kind of got you started really helping others? Walk us through that.
Sure. So, as a diabetic, I paid attention to carbs and realized that really there weren't many low carb snacks out there that I loved that crunched. And so I would, for example, microwave cheese and make like crispy little pieces of cooked cheese. Then I also love those flakes of egg white that would coat the pan when I would make an omelet. And I sort of realized, hey, maybe I can make a chip out of this. And that was probably when I was 13 or 14. And I put the idea away for about 5 years, but then revisited it during college and decided, I was going to go for it and create that product. So I took some time off of school, worked on that product, and then it culminated in a Shark Tank appearance with myself and my co-founder.
So, you guys were like actually on Shark Tank.
Yes, we were actually on Shark Tank. It was a great experience. The sharks were kind to us. I think it helped that we were feeding them right before lunch, so they treated us well.
And what ended up happening with the company in of itself? I know this isn't a business podcast, but it's still interesting. Like, you took an idea from adversity, and that's always the biggest thing we talk about is you learn through adversity.
For sure, yes. So that the real challenge with that company was actually the product itself. So how would we manufacture something like that? You can't just make a bunch of omelets and scrape little flakes into chip bags. So it was difficult to get that formulation down and to scale that up into a manufacturing process. It's really taken some years to get that right. Um, and then it's still operating. We're at about 3,000 stores at this point, and so people across the country are loving the product.
That's awesome. So, walk us through like that product. So, this is going to help lead us into just different type of supplements. So, you're looking for a low carb substitute, and you're going, why this chip?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess I'll take this opportunity to talk about a more general framework for how we think about health and health interventions, but in the context of the chip. So basically, there's really three parts associated with a health habit. The first is the actual performance of the habit. So, do you enjoy doing it? Basically, is it something you look forward to? Is it dreadful? The second part is how it makes you feel acutely afterward. So, after you have this high carb meal or whatever, do you feel like crap? Do you experience that sugar spike and sugar dip? Or if you have a really high quality, say low carb, phytonutrient rich meal, then maybe you feel great for the rest of the day and your energy levels are even and sustained. And then the third piece is basically the long-term health impact of that habit. And so that is actually separate from how it makes you feel. Certain things make you feel great right now, but end up causing damage in the long run. So as we went to create a snack product, we wanted to make sure it was delicious, made you feel good, and also supported long-term health goals.
So, what kind of supplements in particular really helped maintain those long-term health goals? What was something you guys were looking at to help add into the product that you would actually recommend people to really start looking into? Like, try this, not that kind of deal.
Yeah, for sure. So, those second two criteria, how it makes you feel and long-term impact, that really was what was guiding our looking into this supplement space. Of course, there's stimulants or other, things you can take right now that are going to be good for today's capacity, but they're going to create long-term health, negative health consequences. And so we were looking at things like taurine, like alcar, choline, and then certain adaptogenic herbs that basically had an acute impact that you would, so you feel great right now, maybe have a better workout or have a better work session. And then also we're studying for long-term health impacts. And then, so, actually there's a whole slew of supplements that are like that. And, I know your audience is familiar with supplementation uh, but, there's been some skepticism around this industry in general, like, what is this stuff? Are we supposed to be having this stuff? But the way we think of it is that actually supplements are basically just a class of ingredients that have been studied for one reason or another. Whether it was because they were included in traditional medicines or because there was some biological mechanism that indicated that maybe this is useful. And then, so these are really just things that are present in our diets and then extracted and used in potent quantities. And the real benefit of that is that instead of having a diet that has 1,000 different parts of it that's difficult to manage, maybe hard to eat, you can get really potent bioactive stuff in concentrated formats as a supplement to the rest of your diet.
Yeah, and supplements, I mean, they have the good and the bad, right? So we're going to talk a bit come and go. There are RDAs, which is a recommended daily allowance of kind of how much of something you should be intaking. Some supplements you can have too much of, which is a form of toxicity, and you can actually get really sick from it and end up in the hospital. Other supplements, you're more likely not to get toxic because the extreme amounts are so high, but yet they don't have the same impact if you're not eating them with other supplements, which is why they're found in these whole foods, these type of ingredients, because the other ingredients help play a role with getting that supplement to where it needs to go. And that's kind of the simplistic term of thinking about it. So how did you know, and what kind of supplements should you look at, and how did you figure out how to mismatch this one goes with that one, not this one, not that one?
For sure. Yeah. So there's a few different places we look for that sort of information. One is actually when the mechanisms of supplements are known, then you want to make sure that you're not having a supplement that contraindicates that mechanism. Meaning you don't want to put things together that are going to basically antagonize each other, or they're going to amplify each other to an extent that you're going to have side effects. So one example of things that might create side effects, for example, if you have a reuptake inhibitor, something like an SSRI or an SNRI, something that basically keeps levels of neurotransmitters elevated, essentially, in the synaptic cleft that corresponds to the signaling mechanism between neurons. Then if you take a precursor that provides that same neurotransmitter, you'll be liable to have a side effect. So pairing a SSRI with something that's going to increase serotonin levels is a really recipe for disaster. Similarly with an SNRI like Wellbutrin, pair that with something that provides dopamine, you're going to have excessive levels of dopamine that can lead to agitation or, at worst, toxicity.
Yeah, I totally agree. I want to start being specific, and I think this is a good way to just kind of really hit specific supplements and do or don't kind of deal of whether or not we should take these types. Because I know we usually talk like in a broad segment, and I really think like the supplementing world really needs to be specific.
Yep.
So I'm going to just start with vitamins because I think that's kind of where everybody goes. You're going to Whole Foods, Rite Aid, where CVS, you walk to wall and you see just literally an entire aisle, and half of those are dedicated just to the vitamins.
Yeah, right.
There's two classes, and I want you to kind of pick which ones you would recommend and stay away from. One is water-soluble vitamins, and the other one is fat-soluble vitamins. Sure. All that means for those listening is water-soluble vitamins dissolvable by water, where fat-soluble vitamins are dissolved by fat, meaning they take a lot longer of a time to process, and you're basically just not going to piss them out if you're having too much of it, which could lead to toxicity levels. So those vitamins are DAKE. I just like saying DAC just because it's easy to remember. But DAKE are some things you do have to worry about getting too much of. So, Zach, just tell us a little bit about, we'll start with fat. Which vitamins do you think most people have malnourishment or too much of? And are the things they should start looking for to help add to their diets to make themselves healthier?
For sure. Yeah. So, you mentioned it with the fact that fat-soluble vitamins don't get pissed out as quickly or at all because they dissolve in the fat and stick around, and that can lead to toxicity. So, for that reason, I would recommend vitamin D and vitamin K at appropriate levels. Of course, I should say I'm not a doctor, so I'm here just reading the research like everybody else and synthesizing it. But that's personally what I take of the fat-soluble vitamins. We've all heard about vitamin D with COVID, of course. That was something that was studied for better outcomes. So higher vitamin D status corresponded to lower mortality risk with COVID. Vitamin K is actually really great for basically transporting the calcium from your blood to where it should go in the bones. So it's a good one to take in conjunction with vitamin D for that reason, because vitamin D increases the absorption of calcium.
It does, which is why you also need to take vitamin D with calcium. Because they don't have enough calcium, they work together. It's a hand-in-hand relationship. But this is an interesting point, and you talked about immunity. I know we're pretty much getting to that point where the weather's turning, well, thinking about getting inside, everyone's thinking about flu season. And again, the biggest reason we're getting more and more cases of being sick, like the rhinovirus, which is a cold, and the flu, is people don't get enough vitamin D. And that's because we don't get enough sunlight. The easiest way to get vitamin D is 20 minutes or more sunlight a day. Just get outside. It's the most easily absorbed. But we're not doing that in the winter. We're cocooning on the inside. And that's making it so we're more acceptable to these diseases. And of course, there's a bunch of other factors, and nothing is perfect. But it's at least something that you can keep your vitamin D levels normal throughout the winter season, which wouldn't hurt. The flip side of it is you mentioned vitamin K. It does help with transportation. It does lead to clotting disorders. So just be careful not to have too much K.
Sure.
I know somebody personally went to the ER because of that. So just little bit things to think about. Don't eat a full bag of spinach every single day.
Yeah, you do have to be careful, especially with those fat-soluble vitamins. When it comes to the water-soluble vitamins, so B vitamins, C, and really everything besides the four you mentioned, people tend to of those I recommend a B complex, and that's for energy levels and cognition. Specifically, if you're deficient, so if your diet doesn't include things that provide that, so if you're, for example, not having eggs or not having meat for whatever reasons, then it's advisable to take a B complex. The one thing I'd say there is, still we want to be in the basically most functional optimal range for all this stuff, and of course, because these are water soluble, you're not going to store them in the tissues in the same way you do for the fat soluble, but you can still have excessive intake of these vitamins. And so, for example, B6, B9, and B12 taken in high dose multivitamin form have been associated with higher rates of cancer. So that's just something to look out for.
Yeah, and I mean what you mentioned before with the meat products. I mean, more specifically, that's B12, and not getting enough B12 can lead to a whole slew of issues. Which is why if you're vegan, it's okay for yourself, but like understand you have to supplement with B12. It is not found in non-animal products.
For
period.
Sure. Yeah. And I guess as long as we're there, I would mention there's minerals also that are present in animal products that if you're vegan, you want to watch out for. So zinc, selenium, iodine, all of those are found in higher quantities in animal products, and they all basically support healthy functioning. And so you want to make sure that you're getting enough of those.
What are some vitamins that you personally take and why, especially with type 1 diabetes?
For sure. Well, I guess I should say I go through many different sorts of health regimens for the sake of experimenting and learning more. But I do have some staples that basically I keep with me as I transition between different regimens. One of those is magnesium. So basically, because of soil depletion and because of the quality of our diets, we're all, or I shouldn't say all, but most of us, I think it's something like 90% of Americans are deficient in magnesium. And I believe that's involved in about 600 different processes in the body. And so anything from muscle tension to low sleep quality could be associated with low magnesium levels.
Yeah, that's true. Anything else?
That I take daily or usually. I'm really conscious about fiber. That's another thing. Basically it nourishes the microbiome, and then also it's a buffer against the absorption rate of carbohydrates. So if I was going to have a carb-rich meal, I would want to preload with some fiber of all different sorts. So it could be psyllium husk, it could be inulin, it could be chia seeds. Right now, or recently, I've been enjoying Olipop, which is a prebiotic fiber-based drink, and it's like low sugar, natural soda that's high in fiber.
Yeah, you should really listen to my fiber episode. As everyone knows here, that's something I really that's the key, man. Chia seeds every morning for me. But we're going to take a quick break from our sponsor. We're going to hop back in. I actually have very specific questions, especially when it comes to different kinds of minerals and more well-known supplements as it approaches into weight training and cardiovascular and things that people take to get an edge. So we're going to take a quick break from our sponsor, guys, and we'll be right back. See you on the flip side. For us, We know what it's like to feel unhealthy, depressed, and downright defeated. We want to show others there is a right way, and through fitness, you could do anything you set your mind to. Fitness can give you that motivation, confidence, energy you need to bridge that mental gap and prevent you from missing important life events. We understand it's about feeling better, living longer, and being good examples for our kids. We understand this because we live it. And for us, that's the redefined difference. Hey everybody, and welcome back. We have Zach here. We're talking all about supplementing. And I know some of you might find this kind of like all over the place and a little bit, wow, that's overwhelming. But there are that many supplements. I think if you were to look at the market, there's somewhere about 100,000 different types.
Wow.
That is insane. The supplementing industry is $6.5 billion. At least it was about 5 years ago. Probably more than that now. With that being said, the reason the supplementing market is so big is because we're not getting enough in our diets. We're not getting enough types of foods. We're just grabbing going. We're going out to eat. We're getting processed, manufactured foods, and we're not getting whole, real foods. And that's actually preventing us from getting some of the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that we need from these real foods. So just in general, I would say, and I think Zach would agree with me, that it's actually more important to make sure you're eating the right types of foods as opposed to supplementing. Supplementing is supposed to supplement your life. It's not supposed to be, I need to take this. If you can get it from the real source, get it from the real source. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Maybe the thing I'd say, where even if your diet is excellent, there are supplements that basically are just more concentrated forms of foods that you would want to have. And so that could be a convenient way to have them in your diet. And then the second piece is basically for setting state. So we enjoy caffeine in the morning to get our work done and feel awake, for example. And supplements can be basically augment the lifestyle that way to bring you even more capacity than you would with just a healthy diet.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes into the fitness realm of it, right? So
Okay.
I get asked on a daily basis, what do you take? And it's like most of the time, nothing, I'll be honest. But I do have a story that I don't think I've shared on this show yet, but I think it's good for Zach to hear. And I want your opinion at the end of this. So about 2.5 years ago, I tore my chest in 2 different spots.
Well,
I was dumb, my fault, whatever. I needed to heal quick. As everyone knows, I own a fitness business. I'm heavily involved with weights. I'm obsessed with working out myself. I'm not stopping. So I actually pre-programmed my own physical therapy. I did everything myself. And then on top of that, how it's related to the story is I experimented with supplements of how quickly I could regrow the muscle. So it was a partial tear. It wasn't fully torn. I needed to get it reattached. It seemed to heal that spot. So I took my knowledge and I said, all right, what does muscle need? Muscle needs a protein. Great. So I need to make sure I'm eating enough protein for that muscle to regrow. Because like in a gym, when you're tearing muscle, you need more protein to regrow that muscle. So I upped my protein. And I'm sitting right where if I was heavy weightlifting all the time. The second thing is, what are the building blocks of proteins? Building blocks are BCAAs. So I uptick my BCAAs. And if you're not getting, which is, for those that don't know, is branch change amino acids. So it's the amino acids that are non-essential, opposite, that are essential because your body's not producing it. So you need to get them in order to form a full protein, because it's not a complete protein, your body won't use it. Your body's going to produce some of them, but you need the other ones to supplement it. And I'm not going to get into the different ones. It's for another episode. But that was one thing. And the third thing was I took the most heavily researched supplement. I feel like you can't talk about supplements until you talk about this one, and that's creatine. Creatine, as those know, is actually naturally found in red meat, and it's also naturally produced in our bodies when we sleep. What creatine does is it increases our level of creatine. Creatine basically saturates muscle tissue, and that saturation draws water and draws more blood to that muscle. In essence, what it's doing is it's a couple of things. One, it's creating the first line of ATP, which ATP is energy. So it's giving that little extra boost, which is why creatine has been shown across the board to increase physical exertion, how much you can lift, your overall strength. And then what it's doing is helping the muscle heal quicker, because now you have all those nutrients is pulling everything into it. So you're able to heal that area quicker and go back and do those muscles again and be slightly less sore. So I tried this and I healed within 2 months.
Wow.
Which is short for those that don't know. Like, I was doing chest presses again 2 months after the injury with my like 15-pound dumbbells. Like, I feel good. Like, it felt very, very good. So that's my story on that. And I want your kind of opinion on those things that I talked about.
Yeah, well, I think that's fantastic. Congrats. I think you're spot on. Muscle is key for repair of tissue. And creatine is another one of our favorites. It's not only great for physical health, but also it's got mental impacts also. And one thing that we're interested in creatine for is actually for use in fasting. So it's a great way to actually keep energy levels high as you're fasting. It keeps the mind clear, keeps workout performance elevated. So quite interested in that application of it. But I think, yeah, for healing, that's a great move.
I don't know if it works. I don't know. There's no study. There's no, hey, this is proven in this aspect. There's none of that. This is a personal story or something I experimented on myself.
Yeah, right. Totally. I guess this segues into basically a broader class of ingredients, of which creatine is included. So you mentioned the RDAs, which are the things that the FDA recognizes as essential nutrients. And the RDAs are basically the quantities that the FDA is recommending. I believe they're set so that 98 or 99% of people consuming that level would have adequate amounts if they did that daily. And so it's basically set so that you can almost be guaranteed to have enough if you consume the recommended amount. Now, the way that they determine which ingredients should have an RDA is basically acute signs of deficiency. So if you don't get enough vitamin C, you'll get scurvy, for example. Each B vitamin has an associated illness if you're deficient. But what's interesting is there are certain things that we should consume that don't necessarily present as acute deficiency if you don't get enough of them. Instead, you'll have pernicious accumulation of damage over the course of your lifetime for not getting enough. And so the macular carotenoids are an example of this. So you need lutein and zeaxanthin basically for the functioning of your retina. And essentially, if you don't get enough of those over the course of your life, then you could be liable to have blindness or difficulty seeing. But because they don't present an immediate basically signs of deficiency, they're not included yet in the RDAs. So basically, the second class has been termed longevity nutrients. They're things that are involved in maintaining healthy tissue over time, but may not be essential for daily needs. So creatine has been proposed to be a longevity nutrient in that sense. It's important for optimal functioning over the lifetime to have enough creatine.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm always phasing it in and out. That's just something that I've known has been not bad. I don't have to worry about it. Doing a loading phase, not loading phase, it's totally up to you. It doesn't make a difference. It's shown. It's just not loading, just takes longer for your muscles to get saturated. But just having that constant flow of it really, I mean, performance alone is a huge difference. I
Sure.
can't tell you, I start loading onto creatine come November. So then I continue that and I build my strength, build my muscle, build my strength. And then what I do is kind of vain, but hey, if you're a weightlifter, do it. In about late April, I cut off creatine completely. And then what happens is a little like bloating look, like just disappears. And then I was able to build all this more muscle throughout the winter because who cares? And then it just looks better in the summer. And then I restart the cycle again come November, which we're sitting at now. So
yeah, nice. That's great. I think cycling, like you're mentioning, is actually a really good tool too. You want to make sure that you can actually tell what difference things are making. And so going on and off is a nice way to do that.
Yeah, and I want to get to the hardest point about supplementing it all. And I know you have products, and I know these products have supplements and the things you do. So this is going to be way more up your wheelhouse because I only know scrapes. And what I mean by it is what I mentioned earlier, that how big of an industry supplementing is. And you mentioned the FDA. The FDA, for those that do not know this, does not regulate supplements. So literally, Joe Schmo out of his garage can take a bunch of different ingredients and put them into a powder and say, here you go, this is going to do this. And you have no idea what else is in there. There's no follow through on the products. And as long as there's a little asterisk on it that says, this is not FDA approved, then it could literally be whatever. So walk us through that. How would I know as a consumer what to look for? How would I know who to trust and not get these third-rate products that are going to actually end up making me sicker?
For sure. It really does come down to sourcing. So you want to make sure that the products you're coming from are coming from reliable sources, and especially the manufacturer. That's really where the rubber hits the road. So even though yes, supplements themselves are not FDA tested or regulated, um, manufacturers have certifications from the FDA that basically mean that they're using best practices and they're trustworthy. So the manufacturers that we work with are exclusively certified good manufacturing. I'm sorry, use exclusively certified good manufacturing practices. There's also regular certifications like NSF that are very useful, and you can trust the vendor that has an NSF certification. So yeah, really it comes down to the manufacturers. And what the manufacturers are doing when they're practicing good manufacturing practices, they're testing the ingredients as they're coming in for contaminants, including heavy metals, also for bioactive contaminants like E. coli and Salmonella. And so basically, you want, as the brand, you want to make sure you're seeing those certificates and seeing those tests on all of the inputs that are going into your product.
Yeah, but I can't understand the resourcing side of it. I understand it comes down to the manufacturing, but that's more important for me as the brand, right? If I'm selling Anthony supplements, I'm going to follow up on that. But my consumers who don't see me face to face, because it's more of a product industry, I'm just kind of grabbing and going. How is there any certain little information that's like a hint, like, hey, maybe this is better than this one?
Yeah, I mean, so on the bottle or the pouch or whatever format you're getting your supplements in, there should be certifications listed on the bottle, and you can see who produces the supplement, or at least who distributes it. And so go dig and make sure that that certification is real and corresponds to actual good manufacturer. So basically you gotta look into the source. That's now, of course, it's yeah, it's risky business. I mean, you want to make sure you're going with trusted suppliers. Personally, whenever I consume supplements that are not our own product, where we know the source, and we list the CGMP certification as well. I love Nootropics Depot. Of course, I'm plugging a competitor here, but they publish all of their certificates. They got really high quality extracts, and so I couldn't recommend them more than enough for single ingredient products.
That's good to know. Something, but that even shows that makes you a little more reliable. Like you're willing to plug a competitor in order to show people kind of where to go. So that kind of adds to your sense and kind of where you're coming from. So appreciate that a lot. And I guess the biggest thing is do your own research, learn who to trust. Don't just kind of hop on there and grab something because it looks good. I think the easiest thing to talk about in supplements, so you're not really nitpicking certain brands or whatever, it's just fat burners. Fat burners send more people to the ER than any other supplement. Period.
Yeah, yeah.
they're not good for you. They just, nothing about them should be put into your body. Period. But yet they get away and they get to be a multi-billion-dollar companies because they wrote fat burner on it.
For sure. Yeah. It's crazy. That's an example of using supplements to actually dysregulate yourself. The body operates at its temperature in its optimal range, and the metabolism is basically tuned appropriately so that we're so we're living at capacity but not incurring extra damage. So fat burners are intentionally mucking up that process. So yeah, I would definitely avoid them. There's liver issues, there's heart issues. Better to stay away. Anthony, one other thing I wanted to mention on sourcing and quality. I you know There's all sorts of claims around potency, and some of them are pretty vacuous. So you'll see like 20-to-1, for example, extract. It's not clear what that means. What's really important, and Nootropics Depot does a great job of this, is actually measuring the bioactive components, so you know basically the actual potency of what you're getting. So you want if you want curcumin, 400-to-1 extract doesn't mean anything, but 50% or 99% curcuminoids. I think I'm pronouncing that right.
Hard words.
That's the valuable piece of information. So yeah, I couldn't recommend them enough. And then certain ingredients are basic enough, taurine, tyrosine, that there isn't that variability in the bioactive components. You're getting what you're getting, and so that's where it's as long as the source is good and the supplier is good, then there's not as much variability. And the third piece is patented ingredients. So certain brands like Genius, and actually our brand as well, LifeStacks, we make a point of using patented ingredients where we can. And the reason for that is essentially then you've got a standardized source of your ingredient, and you know that it's going to be the same thing over and over again. So we use a patented ginseng extract, basically because it's been studied, clinically studied, has many studies on that particular extract, and then it's all standardized, so you know exactly what's in it. And I also say ginseng typically tastes really bad, and so we went and found a source of ginseng that tastes really good, has great availability, and also great effects.
That's actually really funny because ginseng's one of the supplements I talk about. And people go, "What's that?"
Yeah.
So just walk us a little through ginseng, because it's funny you said that, and I was like, not a lot of people even know that's a supplement. So
yeah, ginseng is almost like caffeine in terms of ubiquity, but in other parts of the world. So it's really popular in Asia. I believe so. Ginseng, the scientific name is Panax ginseng, and Panax essentially means panacea, meaning cure all. It's used like that. If you go to the examine.com page on ginseng, you'll see
that's what I was waiting for you to say.
Yeah. You'll see it's got many study benefits: blood flow, cognition, overall vitality, especially.
Yeah, ginseng and just makes you feel better. I'm gonna be honest. There's something about it, just like this is like a good ginseng mixed with a little bit of taurine, mixed with a little caffeine.
Absolutely, yes. Well, if you don't mind me saying, our first product to the market is actually taurine, ginseng, tyrosine, choline, uridine, rhodiola, huperzine, all delivered on a base of MCT. Are you familiar with MCTs?
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
medium chain triglycerides.
Exactly. Yes. So basically, we've got a cognition stack that's an add to coffee. And so you might be used to adding a creamer to your coffee. This is vegan. It's keto, and it's most importantly, it feels really great and provides like clean, sustained energy for a day of productive work or a great workout.
Good to know. And MCTs are just kind of slowly hitting the market. And this is where I need to get a chef on the show, because I need to know the difference between cooking with MCTs as opposed to saturated fats, as opposed to unsaturated fats, how the heat kind of converts one to the other, what's the proper amount of temperature to make sure that you don't get this reaction. I know there's a lot to cooking that goes way beyond that when it gets to eating healthy.
For sure. Yeah. All I know in that department is that I don't believe MCT oil should be cooked with because it's more volatile than the longer chain fatty acids.
Maybe. I know nothing. That's all I know. I learned from an episode a long time ago we did, and I recommend people take it. It was actually Tom Brady's chef, but he was talking about canola oil. And he's like, canola oil, there's no such thing as canola.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, it's rapeseed. And he's like, yeah, it just means Canada oil.
Right. Yeah, totally.
So I was like, that's mind blowing, because I always thought growing up, I was like, oh, yeah, canola is a plant, but I could never find it.
It's very funny. Yeah. So coconut oil you can definitely cook with, but MCT like oil or MCT oil powder is a particular extract. So it's it doesn't contain the other components that are part of the coconut oil. It's just the pure stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to get to one final point, and I want you to talk about a little more about your companies and how it relates. What have you seen personally with people that have tried different supplements as opposed to not? Is there anything in your life where you've ever seen or had a story where something minor like really changed someone's life?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I guess I've read a lot of reviews and read a lot of pages where people report great effects from various supplements. And then personally, I've definitely experienced benefits. I feel healthier when I take certain things. More sustained focus, better workouts, that sort of thing. That's a hard question. I should think more on that about other people in my life that I know that have had tremendous benefits.
What you're gonna do is you're gonna think where you can get back to me, and I'm gonna put in the show notes.
Great. Okay. Let's do it.
I love it. But I'm gonna ask you the final two questions I ask everyone, Zach. The first one, if you were to summarize this episode in 1 or 2 sentences, what would be your take-home message?
That's a great question. Take home message is um, cultivate a lifestyle full of habits that make you feel great today, make you healthier over the long run, and that you enjoy doing.
Love it. And then the second question, the easiest one of all for you, how can people find you, get a hold of you, give us the good stuff?
Yeah, awesome. Well, we are at lifestacks.com. That's life stacks, stacks.com. And that's where you can find our MCT product, add to coffee, feel great all day. We are specifically focused on basically supplements for fasting, things that can help, make you feel better as you fast. Because we've all been hearing about the longevity benefits of fasting, and we enjoy it as basically a lifestyle choice for daily functioning and long-term health. And I will also plug that we are doing a try it before you buy it offer. So basically, you can add the product to your cart. We'll ship it to you for free, and if you like it, you keep it. And if you don't, you send it back. So we know people love the product so much that we want to share it with everybody, and no barriers. So just
That's awesome.
head over to lifestacks.com and get yourself a free bag.
There you go, guys. You can go check out Zach. Zach, thank you for coming on, and thank you for joining us in this week's episode of Help the Fitness Redefined. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button and join us next week as we dive into this ever-changing field. And remember, fitness is medicine. Until next time.